Today we will do the brain stem. So brain stem is the word we use because brain looks like the tree. As the stem of the tree is supporting the whole of the tree, similarly the brain, whose largest part is the cerebrum, and the midbrain, the pons and the medulla oblongata. So they look like the stem of a tree. So this resembles the cerebrum, and this part of the stem is divided into three parts: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. So the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata, they are called the stem of the brain, or what is called the brain stem. Cerebellum is not included in the brain stem. Only midbrain, pons, and medulla, they look like the stem. And this brain stem is always, we never make it vertical, we always make it obliquely. It is because of the reason that the anterior surface of this brain stem, it is resting on the basi-occiput or the clivus of the cranial cavity. And as the clivus is like a baby slide, it is obliquely, so brainstem is also, we always make the oblique in position. Now we will take the gross anatomy of the brainstem. First we will discuss the ventral surface of the brainstem, then we will draw and discuss the dorsal surface, and then the lateral surface of the view of the brainstem. When we see the first part of the brainstem, that is the midbrain, on its ventral surface, what is seen is called the interpeduncular fossa. So interpeduncular fossa is nothing but this is the ventral or the tegmentum part of the midbrain. So anteriorly it is bounded by the two optic nerves, the second cranial nerves. So two optic nerves, they come and they cross, and that crossing is called the optic chiasma. Then after the optic chiasma, the optic nerve then continued as the optic tract. And these optic tracts, they disappear in the pons, anterior border of the pons. So this is the optic nerve, this is the optic chiasma, and this is the optic tract. So this is the interpeduncular fossa of the midbrain, or the ventral surface of the midbrain. Here we see two crus cerebri, two bundles of the projection fibers of the cerebrum. They are coming from the cerebrum and they are going into the pons. So this is the medial border of the crus cerebri, this is the lateral border. So crus cerebri on its medial 1/6, it is divided into 6 parts. Medial sixth of the, it contains frontopontine fibers. The next 6 fibers, they contain corticospinal and corticonuclear fibers. The lateral 3/6 of the crus cerebri contains parietopontine, occipitopontine and temporopontine fibers. So this is the definite arrangement of the fibers, projection fibers in the crus cerebri. And the corticospinal fibers, they are also present in such a way that the head fibers, they are lying medially, then neck, then upper limb, then thorax, then abdomen, and lower limb lies laterally. So body is represented from medial to lateral side, the corticospinal fibers. In this area here, anteriorly lies the stalk or the infundibulum of the pituitary gland. So this is the stalk or the pituitary gland infundibulum. Then here lies a tuber cinereum, and there are two mammillary bodies here, and here lies the posterior perforated substance. So two mammillary bodies, they are made up of the grey matter, and they receive the fibers, the columns of the fornix. The posterior perforated substance is made for the central branches of the circle of Willis. So through this area, the central branches, they perforate the substance and they go deep to supply the deeper structure like the basal ganglia and the other deeper parts which are lying deep inside the cerebrum. The medial border of this crus cerebri, the upper part has got the third nerve related to it, while the fourth nerve is related to the lateral border of the crus cerebri. So they are the third cranial nerve, the oculomotor, and this is the fourth cranial nerve, the trochlear nerve is related to the lateral aspect of it. And trochlear nerve has got three specialties. Number one, it is the thinnest cranial nerve. Number two, it has got crossed fibers. Number three, it is the only cranial nerve arising from the dorsal surface of the brain. All other 11 pairs of the cranial nerve, they arise from the ventral aspect of the brain, but this only arises from the dorsal aspect. So three specialties you have to remember about the trochlear or the fourth nerve. Then with interpeduncular fossa is the ventral surface, interpeduncular fossa is the deepest structure on the ventral or the inferior surface of the brain. Regarding its boundaries, anteriorly it is bounded by the optic chiasma, laterally it is bounded by the optic tract, posteriorly it is bounded by the anterior border of the pons. Regarding its contents, what lies in this area, this is also called cerebral peduncle. Cerebral peduncle. And it is also called the tegmentum part of the midbrain. Tegmentum part of the midbrain. So here the contents are, number one, from anterior to posterior is the infundibulum or the stalk of the pituitary gland or hypophysis cerebri, through which the pituitary gland is hanging in the diaphragma cell. Second content is the tuber ciliarium. The tuber ciliarium is made up of the grey matter and it lies in the anterior aspect. Then there are two mammillary bodies. So these mammillary bodies, they are receiving the fibers from the columns of the fornix. And from this mammillary body, fibers they go to the thalamus, they are called the mammillothalamic tract. And this mammillary body and the fornix, they are concerned with the limbic system and the rhinoencephalon. The fourth structure is the posterior perforated substance. So this posterior perforated substance is made for the passage of the central branches of the circle of Willis to the deeper structures inside the brain or the cerebrum. Then the fifth content is the third and fourth cranial nerve, they are also lying, and then crus cerebri. So these are the contents of the, another content is the circle of Willis. So circle of Willis is also formed here in this interpeduncular fossa, and here also lies the cisterna interpeduncularis. Cisterna interpeduncularis. So this cisterna, it protects the circle of Willis and it keeps the circle of Willis away from the clypeus or the brain. So there is a gap in the midbrain, anterior surface, crus cerebri and the clypeus. So clypeus may damage it. So the CSF filled sac is present here. So cisterns, they are the CSF filled cushion structures as they lie in the subarachnoid space. So a large amount of the CSF is collected in front of the in the midbrain. So this is called the cisterna interpeduncularis, and the circle of Willis is formed here by the internal carotid artery, continued laterally at the middle cerebral artery, and its anterior cerebral artery runs anteriorly, having anterior communicating artery, while the basilar artery comes from the pons and it divides into the posterior cerebral arteries over the crus cerebrae of the midbrain like this, and the middle and the posterior cerebral artery, they communicate at the posterior communicating artery. So such is this circle is formed in the interpeduncular fossa. Then from these suburbilis, the branches, the central branches, they run and they pierce the posterior peripheral substance and they go deep inside the brain and the cerebrum to supply the deeper structure. So this is how the interpeduncular fossa is having the structures. The next part of the brain stem comes the pons. So pons means the bridge. So pons is a bridge between the cerebrum and cerebellum. And pons mainly connects the cerebellum through the cortico-pontocerebellar fibers. When we see the ventral surface of the pons, it looks like the white matter lies outside and grey matter lies inside of the pons. And when we see the surface of the pons, it looks like the head of the Barbie doll. And here we see the crossing fibers from the right to left. So it is mainly composed of the superficial fibers which are going from right to left, forming the elevation on either side of the median area. So this is called the what is called the pons, or the bridge between the cerebrum and cerebellum. So all these are the fibers which are running on the surface, and all these fibers, they go laterally, it form a compact bundle, they become closer together, like the ponytail of the Barbie doll, and they go into the cerebellum as the middle cerebellar peduncle. So this is the middle cerebellar peduncle. As the crus cerebri fibers, they enter into the pons. So the entrance of the thick bundle of the crus cerebri make a surface elevation on either side of the midline of the pons. So this surface elevation is created by the underlying pontine nuclei and the crus cerebri fibers. So in the median part, the pons, it becomes depressed, or it is having a groove or a sulcus which is called the basilar sulcus, and on either side it is elevated because of the coming fibers from the crus cerebri. So this is the basilar sulcus, and in this basilar sulcus lodges the basilar artery, which is formed by the union of the vertebral artery. So basilar artery lies over here. So in the midline of this Barbie doll, there is a red color artery, and the multiple pontine branches, they emerge from here and they supply on the surface, and they in the white matter or the axons, they pierce and they supply the pons. Another very tortuous artery arising from here is called the labyrinthine artery, which supplies the membranous labyrinth of the internal ear. On its anterior part of the pons, the basilar artery gives the superior cerebellar artery. So this is the superior cerebellar artery, which is the branch of the terminal branch of the basilar artery, with the posterior cerebral artery also is the terminal branch of the basilar artery. So this is the surface of this. Then this head of the Barbie doll is also decorated by the clip, and this clip is formed on the medial surface, lateral surface of the superior lateral surface of the pons. So this clip of the Barbie doll like structure is the thickest cranial nerve. This is the fifth, that is the trigeminal nerve is lying over it. So and it has got a small motor and the large sensory division. Fifth nerve is related, emerging from the ventral. So the emergence of the this trigeminal nerve. So medial to this part is called the tegmentum part of the midbrain or this pons, and later to this line where the trigeminal nerve comes out, this is the point starting of the middle cerebral peduncle, which goes into the cerebellum. Then when we see the dorsal surface of the midbrain, on the dorsal surface of the midbrain we see this is also called the tectum part of the midbrain, and it has got 4 elevations, 2 lower and 2 upper. The upper one they are bigger and lower one they are smaller. So they are called the superior and the inferior colliculi. The superior colliculus is larger and they are made up of the grey matter. The inferior colliculus is also made up of the grey matter, and all the 4 they are separated by the cruciform sulcus. Cruciform sulcus separates the superior with the inferior colliculus. The superior colliculus is functionally connected to the vision or the sight or the eye, and the inferior colliculus is related to the hearing or the ear, is the function of the ear. So S for sight, so superior colliculus, remember, made for the sight means vision, and inferior for the ear or the hearing. So from this grey matter, a bundle of the white fibers bundle comes out of the both superior colliculus as well as the inferior colliculus, and they go laterally, anterolaterally they go. So these 2 fibers, bundles of the white fibers of the axon emerging from the superior and the inferior colliculi, they look like the upper limb or the brachium or the arm coming out of the human body. So because of the arm-like, is called the brachium. We use the word brachium of the superior colliculus, and this is the brachium of the inferior colliculus. In between the 2 superior colliculi, superiorly, there lies a gland that is called the pineal gland. With a stalk, it is called the pineal gland. The pineal gland is also called the third eye. Why it is called third eye? Because it contains photoreceptors. And its another third name of the pineal gland is the epiphysis cerebri. Epiphysis cerebri is the third name of the pineal gland. So the photoreceptors, they are concerned with the arousal phenomena, and they are concerned with the chemoreceptor. They are the photoreceptor cells. Then, as we have said, from the dorsal surface of the tectum part of the midbrain arising the special nerve, that is the trochlear nerve, which arises from the dorsal surface, and they cross. So this is how we show the trochlear nerve specialty arising from the dorsal surface, and they are cross fibers also. Then from the inferior colliculus, below the inferior colliculus, the midbrain is connected to the cerebellum with the help of a thick bundle of the afferent and efferent fibers. From the midbrain, they go into the cerebellum. So this bundle, which is coming out of the inferior colliculus and running obliquely and going into the cerebellum, is called the superior cerebellar peduncle. This is the superior cerebellar peduncle. On its this is the medial border of the superior cerebellar peduncle. So on its upper side, this medial border of the 2 superior cerebral peduncle is closed by a thin sheet of the white matter. This is called the superior medullary vellum. Superior medullary vellum, and this superior medullary vellum closes the 4th ventricle leakage of the CSF. Then, so this is how we see the tectum part of the midbrain. Midbrain is the smallest part of the brain. It is 1 inch long and 1 inch broad. So this is the tectum or the dorsal surface of the midbrain. This is the ventral or the interpeduncular fossa or the tegmentum part of the midbrain. The ventral and the backside is the dorsal part. Now we have already done the anterior or the ventral surface of the pons, like the head of the barkidole, it looks like. Now the backside of it, like this is the dorsal surface of the pons. In the dorsal surface of the pons, we see The two elevations on either side, they are called the facial colliculus. And facial colliculus is made by the both gray and white matter. So below the facial colliculus there lies the gray matter of the abducent nerve, while the white matter of the facial nerve crossing over the nucleus. So they produces a surface elevation which is called the facial colliculus. And this is a very good example of the neurobiotexis. Then the medial part of this dorsal surface of the bones medial to this is called the median eminence. This is called the median eminence. Then on the superolateral surface, near the lateral medial border of the superior cerebellar peduncle, here lies the superior fovea. And then lateral to this, lateral to the facial colliculus, this whole area is called the vestibular area. This is the vestibular area. And this vestibular area below contains 4 vestibular nuclear complex. So 4 nuclei are there below the vestibular area. This is the dorsal, ventral and the anterior and the posterior vestibular nuclei. And these vestibular nuclei, they are connected to the vestibule of the internal ear, and it is very important structure for the maintenance of the equilibrium or the posture by the cerebellum. So this is the dorsal aspect or the posterior aspect of the pons. So pons start from here and pons ends here. So that is the back side. Now comes the ventral or the anterior aspect surface of the medulla oblongata. Medulla is called medulla oblongata because it is oblong in shape. As we have read in the botany, the castor seed. So castor seed is like the having the oblong shape, same is the shape of the medulla. It is also sometimes called bulb shape because it also looks like the bulb, electric bulb. And this medulla in its median part has got a line of the sulcus which is called the anterior median sulcus. And on either side of it, there is an elevation which looks like the pyramid, surface elevation, and they are broad above. As we go down, it becomes narrow. So this is called the pyramid of the medulla oblongata, and pyramid, they are made up of the white matter because the projection fiber, the corticospinal fibers, they come into these pyramids. The corticopontine fibers, they go to the cerebellum. That is the frontopontine, paretopontine, occipitopontine and temporopontine. They go to the opposite side of the cerebellum via the middle cerebellar peduncle. So this is the pyramid. Lateral to the pyramid, there is a olive seed-like elevation. This is called the olive. So below, olive is made of the grey matter. Below the olive lies the inferior olivary nucleus. Then its lower part of the medulla, there is a decussing fibers are present. They are called the pyramidal decussation. Pyramidal decussation. So here the 80% of the corticospinal fiber they cross. Then the medulla ends at the upper border of the C1 or the atlas vertebra. So this is the lateral part of the medulla. So medulla is also having the connection with the cerebellum. So medulla in the upper and lateral part is the fibers of the medulla, they go to the cerebellum as the inferior cerebellar. So the lateralmost part of the medulla is called the inferior cerebellar peduncle, and they also goes into the cerebellum. So it means cerebellum is connected to the medulla through 3 bundles that is called the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Then the cranial nerves, they are also related to the, so this line where the bones and the medulla start is called the pontomedullary junction. And this part is called, the median part between the 2 pyramids is called the foramen caecum. And above the pyramid arises the 6th nerve, that is the abducent, and above the olive lies the 2 lines which show sensory and the motor part of the 7th nerve, facial nerve, and 2 lines vestibulocochlear nerve, 8th nerve. So they are related to the upper part of the pontomedullary junction. Lateral to the olive, there arises the 9th, 10th, and the 11th nerves. The spinal part of the spinal nerve, they go into the upper 3 and 4 segments of the spinal cord as well. The accessory nerve, the spinal part also. The cranial part arising lateral to the olive. The spinal cord comes from the upper 4 segments of this spinal cord, cervical segment, and they join the accessory nerve, the 11th nerve. Between the olive and the pyramid, there arising the hypoglossal. Last cranial nerve, there is the hypoglossal arising between the pyramid and. So this is called the anteromedial sulcus, and this is called the anterolateral sulcus. This is called the anterior median sulcus. So this is how we describe the ventral aspect of the medulla. On the back side of the medulla, if you see the back side of the medulla, how it looks like, the dorsal surface of the medulla looks like this. So dorsal side of the medulla is divided into 2 parts. Upper part is called the open part and lower part is called the dorsal part. So upper part, the half is called the open part and lower half is called the closed part of the medulla. And both open and closed part of the medulla, they are divided by a point that is called the obex. So obex is very important point for the neurosurgeon for the operations done in this region. So obex looks like the nib of the fountain pen, and the same posterior median sulcus is continued as well in the medulla also, and it goes into the spinal cord and the closed part also. So this is the posterior median sulcus. The features of the open part is that there are present 2 triangles. The upper one is called the hypoglossal triangle and the lower one is called the vagal triangle. This is the vagal triangle. Here the vagal, dorsal vagal nucleus lies below it and the hypoglossal nucleus lies below it. Then lateral to these nuclei, here lies the same, the vestibular area which was in the bones is also continued down into the medulla laterally, because vestibular nuclear complex is very large, is having the 4 vestibular nuclei below this area. So vestibular area is very large area for the equilibrium or the postural maintenance. The obex is the point from where the open part becoming closed, or in other words, the central canal of the spinal cord actually start from the closed part of the lower half of the medulla. On either side of the posterior median sulcus, continued from the spinal cord, comes the fasciculus gracilis medial and the bundle, that is fasciculus cuneatus laterally, and in the upper part or at the level of the obex, both the fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus, they terminate into cuneate tubercle and gracile tubercle, which are made up of the grey matter. So this is the feature of dorsal aspect of the medulla. So this whole lateral part of the medulla is called the inferior cerebellar peduncle. So fibers from the inferior cerebellar peduncles have got the many fibers which are afferent and efferent, about 1 dozen afferent and efferent fibers. They are present in the inferior cerebellar peduncle, which connects the medulla with the cerebellum. Now last comes the lateral view. If you see the lateral view of the midbrain, this is the midbrain, this is the pons, and this is the medulla oblongata, which ends at the level of C1 vertebra. So this is the line of the cerebrum, end of the cerebrum. Dorsally here lies the superior colliculus and inferior colliculus. Below the inferior colliculus, we know there is a bundle of superior cerebellar peduncle fibers. They go to the cerebellum. So this is what is the cerebellum, smallest part of the brain also. Then all the fibers from the middle cerebral, from the pons, the thickest bundle, they go to the cerebellum. So they constitute the middle cerebellar peduncle. Then from the medulla, whole of the inferior cerebellar peduncle forms, they also go to the cerebellum. So in this way, 3 bundles, superior, middle and inferior cerebellar peduncles, they connect the brain stem, where the midbrain, pons and medulla with the cerebrum. So three peduncles: superior cerebral peduncle, middle cerebral peduncle, and inferior cerebral peduncle. They connect the cerebellum. If you cut these three bundles, cerebellum is not the part of the brain. Only these three bundles, they connect the cerebellum with the rest of the brain. So this is how we finish with the what is called the gross anatomy of the brain stem.